Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I want to do a brief video on some things that I've picked up at a recent train show back in August, a couple of things I picked up on a trip to my hometown of St. Petersburg a couple of weeks ago also, and a couple of projects I have going on. I always have a couple of irons in the fire, but I thought I'd share a few that I have going on right this moment. First off, I picked this up a few months ago, this Bachmann ACS64. I was watching videos of Northeast Corridor rail traffic and kind of fell in love with how European this looks. It's just a wonderful design and I thought they were so cool, and I just had to have a model of it, and it complements the Acela very nicely. I'm happy to have it. I need to get some Amfleet cars for it to pull. That's going to be the next major purchase. I actually just got this back from Bachmann because while I bought it new, it would grind, the gears would grind really loudly at a higher top speed, so I sent it off to Bachmann. They repaired it under warranty, and they actually replaced the entire chassis. But it runs beautifully now. It sounds healthy, and I'm very happy to have it. It's a wonderful model, and it, like I said, complements the Acela and that Atlas ALP 45DP really well. Maybe I'll do a video kind of going through the sound effects and everything of that locomotive later. Next up on the bench is this Broadway Limited Union Pacific 482 MT73 class locomotive. I bought this online from a private seller who was selling it for a pretty good price. It was running when he sold it to me, and it still runs really well. It had a very loud smoke unit that just squeaked every time the model was run, so I ripped it out, and I figured while I was ripping that out, why not just replace the Paragon 2 electronics with something better. So it has a Decoder Buddy Mini in the tank with this is a Soundtrax decoder in there with a TCS KA1 Keep Alive to keep it going. And it is just a wonderful running model now. It will sound great eventually when I put in this Scale Sound Systems speaker also going into the tank. And then I'll button it up and it will be done. I have a set of IHC heavyweight passenger cars for this thing to pull in that overland gray scheme, so I'm looking forward to eventually seeing what that looks like when I can get those re-wheeled with metal wheels and proper couplings a little later on. But yeah, this is probably going to get buttoned up today. Maybe there'll be a video on it later on. We'll see. Next on the bench is this Athearn Blue Box P42 that I started working on a couple months ago. This was more at the beginning of the year. This is a dummy P42. There was no motor inside. When I was really young, I had a model of an Athearn Blue Box P42 just like this, a running model, and it ran really well, although I did not take very good care of it. I didn't put any of the details on. I was only 8 or 9 years old at the time, so I didn't know any better. So I kind of wanted to make up for the fact that I didn't really take care of this model with this one here. And I couldn't find one that wasn't missing windows or was just kind of beat to crap for a decent enough price that was, you know, a running model. So I bought this dummy for about $25. And I figured I'll have a nice looking dummy, maybe I can put a motor into it. And actually, that's what I decided to end up doing after doing a little bit more research. I mounted a Kado motor using some silicone adhesive. On top there's a Decoder Buddy 21-pin motherboard on there. It uses an A-line dog bone drive shaft system. It's in another box right now. Went ahead and added a Details West detail kit to this model as well. I had to find trucks that worked because the dummies come with plastic trucks and no pickups, so it wasn't gonna work, you know, if I just used those. So I had to find these, and thankfully I found a seller on eBay selling them. The side frames, of course, also got some extra Details West details, just kind of sitting there waiting. This is more or less a complete model, ready to go. I just need to get a few more details mounted on the shell. It's missing an antenna, but it has windshield wipers, it's got the white railings, the Details West horn, and on the underside we have the Decoder Buddy lighting board that allows you to separate the shell from the chassis without having it connected. On the front and the back, I used this Tulip Puffy t-shirt paint to block out any light from the LEDs. It's great for light bleed. I highly recommend it. It's in small doses especially, but so yeah, it's all wired up. There's a big old Scale Sound Systems speaker mounted in the back there, and it sounds really nice when it has a decoder in it. I just need to figure out which decoder it's going to end up with, either ESU or a TCS probably for this one. But I'm really happy with where this is going. I might end up seeing if I can figure out a cab solution for this too. I think someone on Shapeways sells a 3D printed little cab that you can mount in there. I might end up doing something like that. I'll probably do a more full-featured video on this when it's done. But for now, that's where it's at. Lastly, for the projects that are kind of going on right now, I was given this by a very good friend of mine. You may have seen this sort of thing in a dollar store or a flea market. It's just a little train set in a box, comes with a battery-powered plastic toy train that pulls a few plastic cars on some plastic track. A piece of that track right here, just to give you an idea, just snaps together and makes an oval. I wanted to do something a little bit, interesting with this, a little more fun. And while I was flipping through Railways and War Before 1918, fantastic book if you're into this sort of thing, I was looking at these narrow gauge locomotives, these petrol electric tractors as the chapter calls them. And I really liked this turtle design, so I went ahead and right here, out of styrene plastic, made a shell. And it's kind of getting painted right now. Still kind of working on it, but I just made it so you could remove the shell and it's just plastic card, and you have yourself a little narrow gauge World War I turtle, I guess. And this could go around the garden or just sort of on the tabletop. And I've got the chassis for the other cars as well. I'll probably go through this book and maybe add on to it ammo carriers, ambulance cars. There's a whole lot going on, so that might be fun to do. It's a fun project, real cheap too, so making a little narrow gauge train out of this for fun, it's a nice way to kind of mix things up. And I've really been getting into the railway operating division and the Great War and the locomotives used to bring the men and supplies to the front lines. It's an interesting topic to me, so I wanted to kind of continue on with that. So that's that. Maybe I'll do another video on that when that's done. Look forward to it. The next few items I'm going to show are items that I picked up at that previously mentioned model train show and those model train stores, and it's nothing too crazy, but there's some interesting things. Picked up a Keep Alive from TCS, another one. I really like Train Control Systems Keep Alives especially. This one is their KA4, it's a small cube. This is going to be going into the boiler of my Rivarossi Big Boy locomotive, and is the last thing I need to put into that locomotive before I can button it up and call it a finished product. Maybe I'll do a video on that as well later on in the future, but good thing to have. Next thing I picked up was this Hogwarts Express. I think this is a brake coach, or a coach of some sort. This is a Bachmann coach. I actually have the original Harry Potter train set that they released when the first movie came out, with 2 coaches and the locomotive. It's actually 00 gauge rather than HO scale, given to me as a gift from my parents the year the movie came out, the first movie. And while I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan anymore, I still have the train set, and it just reminds me of my childhood and Really nice gesture that my parents, got me a train set. It wasn't always something I got despite my love of trains. And I picked up this extra coach for another $10 just to have it on display. The train doesn't really run well anymore. It's a split chassis Hall class locomotive, so I just figured for $10 I'd add an extra car to that, put it on display, maybe on a nice display case eventually. But yeah, I couldn't say no for $10. Some of the other items, picked up this Atlas Trainman kit, a Union Pacific 40-foot boxcar. Nothing special. It's a kit. I'll have to be put together. I've been collecting 40s and 50s UP boxcars for eventually the big boy and the 9000 and whatever other steam locomotives I have to run to pull them. I don't always just keep 2 Union Pacific boxcars though. A lot of times I like to pick up something that, if it looks interesting or has interesting graphics, even if UP would never pull it, it's something I'd like to grab. So I also picked up this Nauset Railway, the old Colony line. I think that's up in Rhode Island, I'm sure. I love the graphic of the lighthouse there. This is I believe a roundhouse kit. And yeah, this was about $15. I was happy to get it. I like doing kits like this. I think they're a lot of fun. A great way to spend an afternoon. Next up is this Walthers Suburban Stations platform kit. Picked this up for I think about $15-16 at that train show. And yeah, it's just a kit of station platforms, nothing special about it. But me getting into the commuter railway thing with the ACS and the New Jersey Transit and Acela, part of me just thought it would be a good idea to have on hand. This probably won't be built for a long time, but I wanted to pick it up anyway for how cheap it was. Happy to have it. Next up are the last 2 items, and these are probably the most interesting. Picked this up from one of the train stores in St. Petersburg for $23. This is a Mantua 10-wheeler. For the price, I was kind of amazed, and I actually didn't buy this. I put it back on the shelf. My friend who was with me ended up buying it and gave it to me as sort of a present. So I'm grateful to him, because I would have been kicking myself if I didn't have just picked this up for how cheap it was, but I wasn't really thinking that I needed it. I'm probably going to repaint this and decal it as the locomotive that pushes the DeLorean in Back to the Future Part 3. Because it is essentially the same locomotive. I'll probably remotor it, take out the open frame motor, put a sound decoder in the tender as usual. So that's another project to add to the list, but it's a really nice locomotive. It ran really well at the store. They tested it for us, and yeah, it's just kind of noisy because of that motor and the gear there. It's a nice piece for the collection. And lastly, probably the most interesting thing that I've gotten, this was also at that train show in Austin, was this Roco International locomotive. This is a 210O, and I don't really know what to say about it. This was on a shelf. One of the vendors was a charity group that picked up a lot of items at an estate sale, I believe, and they just had a bunch of Austrian and German and French pieces on display for pretty good prices. And this was $30, and they went ahead and sold it to me for $30, and I was, there's something about it that spoke to me, and I just couldn't say no to it. Really nice. It has its instructions and everything. I can't really find anything about this particular locomotive specifically. Armistice, as it's apparently called. It's a German locomotive, but I guess France had a few of them too. But it is a tender-driven model. So this is my only tender-driven model that I have. Let's see if I can pull it out without damaging anything. So it's nicely weighted. It's tender driven, so these wheels are just gonna spin freely. It's just really cool. I couldn't say no for $30, and I'm really happy to have it. It runs not super well. The motor is a can motor, but it's kind of old. I removed the plastic coal load from the tank just to see that it was removable, and I also took the motor out. It's like any other can motor really, so its wheels are just kind of spinning freely at the moment. I'll probably replace that motor, and I don't know if I can convert this to DCC. I'd like to. There's not a whole lot of room. If I can mill out some of this area up here, I could probably fit a ESU decoder in there without much trouble. And they have a sound file for this locomotive too. This is a 3-cylinder as well, kind of like the 9000s. And the owner put Kadee style couplings on the front and the back, so yeah, just really cool. I flip it around. There we go. I don't know, it was so cool to me, and I, like I said, couldn't say no for 30 bucks. Was really happy to add this to the collection, and it's something I'll have to work on in the future. I've got a few more things that I want to work on first, but yeah. It looks like a brute. It's just stout and kind of chubby, kind of chunky, but I think it's really cool. Well, that's going to do it for this video. I want to thank you all so much for watching. I have a lot to do, a lot to get into with these eclectic mix of locomotives and projects. Look forward to the next video. Hopefully I'll have something out soon, but thank you so much for watching.